He thought it was just another audit, until the numbers whispered secrets of a billion-dollar fraud. Now, with assassins closing in and corporate giants out for blood, one man must decide: stay silent and survive, or expose the truth and risk everything. In a world where loyalty is bought and silence is deadly, how far would you go for justice? The soft hum of Denver's morning traffic was lost on Matthew Shaw as he sat by his apartment window, watching life continue as if his world hadn't just been upended. Fired, silenced, brushed aside for discovering something too big to be allowed into daylight. Matthew had always trusted numbers. They were his refuge after losing his parents, his compass after his grandmother's passing, and now, his battleground. He'd thought about walking away. Let it go, they said. But walking away would mean betraying everything he stood for. And there was someone who'd once told him to never betray his gut. That someone was Jennifer Riley. Their meeting was short, but seismic. The moment she said, "This could come back on you hard," a line had been drawn. He wasn't naive. Westbrook had powerful friends. People like Curtis Brandt weren't middlemen. They were gatekeepers for darker hands pulling the strings. The knock on his apartment door startled him. It was Jennifer. "I shouldn't be here," she said, stepping in. "But I checked the Harley Group files you gave me. You were right, and you're in more danger than you realize." "Danger?" Matthew asked. Jennifer's sharp features softened for a moment. "Trevor, the analyst they fired 2 months ago, he wasn't fired, he's missing." The air grew thick. Matthew's analytical brain kicked in. "So it's not just a cover-up, it's a cleansing." Jennifer nodded. "I need to show you something." She pulled out her tablet, swiping through confidential memos. One in particular made Matthew's stomach twist. A project codenamed Red Ledger linked Harley Group shell companies to offshore accounts tied to political figures and organized crime syndicates. "It's bigger than money laundering," Jennifer said. "This is geopolitical." "Why are you helping me?" he asked. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. "Because the truth matters, and because I believe you're the only one who can finish what Trevor started." Before Matthew could respond, a loud crash echoed from the alley behind his building. Jennifer's eyes darted to the window. "They found you," she whispered. That night, they fled Denver. Days on the road blurred into hushed conversations and careful glances. Jennifer wasn't just a compliance officer, she was once an investigative journalist. Corporate espionage had been her beat until a smear campaign by a conglomerate forced her into exile within corporate walls. The more they shared, the more Matthew realized they were kindred spirits, loners with a moral compass that refused to recalibrate. One evening in a small motel in Boulder, Jennifer admitted, "I never thought I'd trust anyone in this line of work again." Matthew, hesitant yet emboldened by their growing bond, took her hand. "Numbers don't lie, Jennifer. Neither do people like you." It was the first time in weeks he saw her smile, not the practiced professional smile, but something real. Jennifer's contact from her journalism days reached out. A former FBI agent named David Mercer, now a private security consultant, agreed to meet them in a remote cabin. But as they approached the rendezvous point, Matthew's phone buzzed. Unknown number. "I warned you, Shaw. This isn't a game. Turn back now, or you'll wish you had," Curtis's voice. Jennifer grabbed the phone, putting it on speaker. "Funny, Curtis," she said coldly. "You sound nervous." The call ended abruptly. As they reached the cabin, they found the door ajar. Inside, papers were scattered, furniture overturned, and in the middle of the chaos, David Mercer lay unconscious, a bloody gash on his forehead. Pinned to his chest was a single playing card, the Queen of Spades. "Message received," Jennifer whispered. Matthew's grip tightened. This wasn't just a cover-up anymore. It was war. The CEO of Harley Group was Dominic Voss, a name that didn't ring any bells until I found news articles tying him to offshore accounts, political fundraisers, and whispered allegations that somehow never stuck. Publicly, he was a philanthropist. Privately, it seemed, he was untouchable. But something else caught my eye. An investigative journalist, Emily Carter, had written a piece 2 years ago hinting at Harley Group's opaque financial practices. The article was buried, with few shares and barely any traction. Curious, I found her professional profile. She hadn't published anything since. Something told me she might know more. I debated reaching out, then reminded myself they had already fired me, already threatened me. I wasn't safe playing cautiously anymore. I sent Emily a brief message. Ms. Carter, I'm looking into Harley Group. Came across your work. Could use your insight. Not a reporter, just someone who found something they weren't supposed to. Can we meet? An hour later, she replied, You're either very brave or very foolish. But I'm curious. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Crescent Cafe. Discretion matters. As the sun rose over Denver the next day, my phone vibrated again. Another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Matthew Shaw? A man's voice, crisp, corporate. This is Michael Avery, Harley Group's counsel. We're aware of your recent inquiries. It would be in everyone's best interest if you ceased this line of investigation. A pause. The weight of his threat hung heavy. I don't respond well to threats, Mr. Avery. Not a threat, a courtesy. People who involve themselves in matters beyond their understanding often face unintended consequences. Click. This was escalating fast. When I arrived at the Crescent Cafe, Emily Carter was already seated. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, a guarded expression. She didn't smile as I approached. Matthew Shaw, the man poking the bear. I could say the same about you. She let out a humorless chuckle. I poked once, got burned. Careful, Shaw. Harley Group doesn't play by the rules. I laid out my findings, the shell companies, the laundering patterns, Curtis's involvement. Emily listened, her face unreadable. I knew they were dirty. Couldn't prove it. My sources dried up. My editor told me to drop it. A week later, my apartment was ransacked. No fingerprints, no evidence, just a warning. Her gaze softened slightly. Why risk this, Shaw? You're not a cop, not a reporter. Why not walk away? I thought of my grandmother, of the quiet moral compass she had instilled. I guess I'm tired of looking away. Emily leaned in. Then you'll need allies, people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. I can connect you to someone, a former SEC investigator, Daniel Ross. He doesn't owe Harley any favors. As we spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A man at the bar pretending to read the newspaper, his eyes flicking toward us too often. When Emily noticed, her tone dropped to a whisper. Time to leave, Shaw. Follow me. We exited through the back alley. Just as we rounded the corner, a black SUV crawled past the front entrance. Same tinted windows, same pattern. They're not subtle, are they? I muttered. Emily shook her head. No. They want you scared. Public intimidation. The real hits come quietly. She gave me Daniel Ross's contact before we parted ways. Be smart, Shaw. They'll come after what matters to you most. When I met Daniel Ross, he was everything Emily described. No nonsense, former SEC bloodhound, and surprisingly, he had a personal grudge against Harley Group. They derailed my career 5 years ago, Ross explained. I got too close. They bought people out, silenced witnesses, but I never forgot. I never. Together we began cross-referencing Harley Group's shell companies with property records, vendor databases, and tax filings. What emerged was a sprawling network of fraud, but we needed a direct link, something that could prove criminal intent. That's when Jennifer Riley called. I did some digging after our meeting. You were right, Shaw. Curtis isn't just complicit, he's benefiting. He's got offshore accounts tied to the same shells you flagged. Her voice carried a weight of urgency. But there's more. Curtis scheduled a private meeting with Dominic Voss. It's happening this Friday. Location undisclosed, except for one thing. The booking reference was accidentally copied to my inbox. It's a penthouse suite at the Parkview Hotel. This was the break we needed, but it also meant walking into the lion's den. Ross advised caution, but I couldn't sit. On the sidelines, with Jennifer's help, we devised a plan to record the meeting, evidence straight from the source. I booked a room 2 floors below the penthouse using a burner identity. Emily arranged for discreet surveillance equipment. The operation was risky, bordering on reckless, but we had one shot. Friday evening came swiftly. As I monitored the feed from my laptop, I saw Curtis enter the suite, followed by Dominic Voss, larger than life, exuding cold authority. Their conversation was business as usual until Curtis brought up the analyst who wouldn't let go. Dominic's response sent chills down my spine. "We've handled worse, Curtis. If persuasion fails, accidents happen. Make sure this Shaw problem disappears." Ross clenched his fists. Emily swore under her breath. We had them, recorded, irrefutable. But then, the surveillance feed cut to static. Seconds later, a sharp knock at my hotel room door. My heart rate spiked. I hadn't ordered room service. "Matthew Shaw, open up." "Hotel security," Ross whispered. "We've been compromised. Time to go." As I slipped out through the fire exit, I caught a glimpse of 2 men in tailored suits approaching the hallway, not hotel staff. They moved with intent, coordinated. Emily's getaway car was waiting by the service entrance. We sped away, hearts pounding, adrenaline fueling every second. "We got the recording, right?" I asked breathlessly. Ross nodded. "It's saved, remotely. But they know you were here. You'll be their priority now." In the days that followed, as we worked to compile our evidence into a watertight case, something unexpected happened. Jennifer Riley and I began spending more time together, beyond strategy meetings and tense phone calls. There was a quiet understanding between us. Mutual respect is born from standing up against giants. One evening, as we pored over documents in her apartment, exhaustion evident on both faces, Jennifer looked at me differently. "You know, Shaw, most people would have folded by now." "Why, didn't you?" I smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm stubborn. Maybe I'm just naive." She shook her head. "No. You're the rare kind who does the right thing even when it costs you everything." There was a pause, a moment hanging in the air. Then, without planning, without fanfare, she kissed me. Soft, but certain. For the first time in weeks, the fear, the tension melted away. Just for that moment. But reality was never far behind. Her phone buzzed. Anonymous. "Tip," she said, reading the message. "Westbrook is planning to announce a merger. Harley Group stands to launder millions through the deal. Once it's public, reversing it will be near impossible. We had to act. Fast." Ross arranged a meeting with a contact at the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. With the recording, transaction records, and Jennifer's internal documentation, we had a compelling case. But Westbrook wasn't giving up without a fight. The morning of the meeting, I received a message. "Walk away, Shaw. Last chance." I ignored it. At FinCEN's office, as we laid out our evidence, the agents listened intently. The weight of our findings was undeniable. Finally, someone with the power to act was paying attention. But just as the meeting adjourned, an emergency alert flashed on the office screens. Westbrook and Harley Group's merger had been announced publicly. Stock prices were soaring. Media spin was in full force. We were minutes late, but the fight wasn't over. Ross leaned in. "We've triggered an investigation. Now it's about timing and pressure." That evening, as I walked Jennifer home, the air was thick with tension. The battle had begun, but victory was far from certain. "Do you regret this?" she asked quietly. "Not for a second," I replied. But as we turned the corner, a car screeched to a halt beside us. Men in dark suits emerged. Before I could react, someone grabbed me, pulling me into the vehicle. Jennifer's scream echoed in my ears as the door slammed shut. "You should have walked away, Shaw," said a familiar voice. "Curtis." The car sped into the night. The SUV roared through the city like a predator in the dark. Curtis sat across from me, his face carved in smugness. "You could have been rich, Shaw. Instead, you chose the hard way." I glared back. Funny, I was going to say the same about integrity. His chuckle was sharp. This isn't a movie. There's no whistleblower happy ending. You'll disappear, the world will forget, and Harley Group will keep spinning gold. But Curtis had one fatal flaw. He underestimated how far I'd already come. What he didn't know. The moment I was grabbed, my smartwatch sent a distress signal to Jennifer and Ross. Live location, audio feed included. Every word Curtis spoke was being recorded, transmitted, and logged. He just kept talking. It's poetic. You're the analyst who dug too deep. Now you're the liability we bury. The SUV pulled into an abandoned warehouse on the city's EU outskirts. Classic cliché. But this wasn't fiction. This was a raw, dangerous reality. Two men yanked me from the car. My heart pounded, but fear had long since given way to resolve. As they dragged me toward the warehouse interior, headlights flooded the lot. Another car, then another, and another. Curtis's smug grin faltered. From the lead vehicle emerged Daniel Ross, flanked by FinCEN agents, and to my utter relief, Jennifer Riley. Curtis Westbrook. Ross's voice boomed. Step away from him. You're under investigation for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Curtis's men hesitated. Guns weren't drawn, but tension crackled. You think you can pin this on me? Curtis sneered. Ross smiled coldly. We already did. Your confession was live-streamed to federal servers. Congratulations. You just made our job easier. Curtis lunged at me, but his men held him back. They weren't getting paid enough for this. Within seconds, he was in handcuffs, spitting curses as he was led away. It was over. Almost. In the days that followed, the news exploded. Harley Group executives arrested in massive fraud scandal. Anonymous analyst exposes corporate corruption. Whistleblower heroes, the faces behind the fall. Dominic Voss was indicted within the week. Assets frozen. The merger? Halted pending investigation. Investors scrambled, reputations crumbled. For the first time, accountability didn't seem like a fantasy. And as for me, I was offered hush money. Twice. I declined. What I accepted, however, was a new role, senior risk analyst for a federal watchdog group. A chance to keep doing what mattered, but one offer meant more than any title. On a quiet evening, away from boardrooms and breaking news, Jennifer and I sat at a small riverside cafe. No threats, no conspiracies, just two people who'd been through hell together. I owe you dinner, I said with a smile. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. One dinner won't cover saving your life, Shaw. Well, I'm open to negotiations. She laughed, a sound I'd come to cherish. Then with surprising seriousness, she added, You didn't just expose Harley Group. You reminded me why I do what I do. I reached across the table, taking her hand. No more fighting alone. The river flowed quietly beside us, a stark contrast to the chaos we'd left behind. For once, the future felt unwritten, full of possibilities. Weeks later, as life found its new rhythm, a letter arrived at my desk. No sender, just an ivory envelope. Inside was a single line. For every giant you topple, there's always a bigger shadow watching. Fee, no signature, but the message was clear. This wasn't the end. Not for me, not for the fight, but for now. I had won, and that was enough.